Hello and welcome. You're watching BQ Prime, and today for this special broadcast, I'm joined by Mr. Raman Aggarwal from the FIDC. Mr. Aggarwal, thank you so much for speaking to BQ Prime on such a short notice.
Thank you.
Mr. Aggarwal, we're talking about the G20 declaration, and it has been making news all over the weekend. The G20 declaration is talking about some better coordination between countries to solve the financial sector issues. But it also mentions somewhere about the non-banks. So what do you think the kind of work that needs to be done in the NBFC space?
Thank you, first of all, for having me on the program. We are all, elated and delighted to see how well India has hosted and organized the G20, and all credit goes to the Indian government, led ably by our Honorable Prime Minister. And I think apart from organizing the summit, what was more historic was the New Delhi Declaration, as you mentioned, because there was a lot of speculation that in the wake of the ongoing geopolitical issues, there will not be a consensus. But through sheer diplomacy and authoritative leadership, India has managed to come out with a 100% unanimity, where New Delhi Declaration talks about there is absolutely no footnote. And you're right, yes, when we talk about the New Delhi Declaration, one of the key areas it touched upon is the financial sector issues. And there, the New Delhi Declaration has drawn its recommendations or points from the third G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting, which was earlier held in the month of July in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. As you know, as part of this G20 presidency, about 60 meetings were held across the country, and one of them was with the finance ministers and central bank governors. So in that meeting, this issue was discussed specifically. A lot of importance was given on the non-bank finance intermediation. And the same finds mentioned in the Delhi Declaration, if you read para H, which is on financial sector issues, the first point it touches upon is the NBFI. So what does it say is that recognizing that is, I think, the key takeaway, first of all, that at the level of G20, so you can imagine a global stage recognizes the role of non-bank financial intermediation, NBFIs. And that is where we've been saying all these years that the big quantum jump in the recognition of NBFI sector in the wake of some of the excellent work being done is now being recognized globally. So that's the first key takeaway for me. And this finds as the first mention point in under the financial sector issues of the Delhi Declaration. So what does it say? That we continue to strongly support the work of Financial Stability Board to address the vulnerabilities, enhance the resilience of NBFIs. Now, just for clarification, we may know, FSB is a Financial Stability Board, which is an international body that monitors and makes recommendations on the international financial stability. So it talks about the various risks which may come affecting the financial stability across the world. As you rightly said, the world is totally connected today. So one financial crisis in any part of the world does have an offshoot or impact on the other part. So what it says is that we need to enhance the resilience of the non-bank financial intermediation, the NBFI sectors. And there they have said that we fully support the work being done by FSB. So that's the first key takeaway. If we further deep dive into this, so this Financial Stability Board had come up in a few days back a report on how to enhance the resilience of the NBFIs across the globe. So what is the whole message here, if I may connect the dots, is that the G20 declaration says, one, we recognize NBFIs as an important key sector.
Right.
Two, we fully support the work being done by the Financial Stability Board to enhance the resilience of the NBFI sector.
Yeah.
So this is the key takeaway under the New Delhi Declaration.
Right. So I would just like your perspective on this, but do you think that the non-banks are in a right placed to tap into the India's growth potential at this point?
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. And in fact, that has been, if you see, ever since 2018, when we had the liquidity crunch post the ILFS crisis. Yeah, although it was for the wrong reason that suddenly an NBFI sector, or NBFC sector as we call in India, came into limelight. But ever since then, the sector has shown tremendous resilience and growth, and we saw this during the COVID era. In spite of during the COVID era, there was a lot of speculation that whether the sector may cause a death knell for the sector. But we see post COVID, and like many of the previous crises, NBFC sector in India has in fact come out very strong. And the government of the day is fully recognizing this fact, is aware of this fact. The central bank, which is RBI, which is also the regulator, also recognizes. So we see a greater recognition coming in from all levels, whether it's the regulator or the policymakers. And that itself speaks about the potential this sector has in playing an important role going ahead when it comes to taking India to become the third largest economy or become a 5 trillion economy, whatever you may say so.
Sir, since we're talking about the potential of the sector already, I would also like to get an understanding from you that what do you have to say on the asset quality as a metric for the NBFC sector at this point?
See, at this point, we've seen, as always, the asset quality is pretty robust. In fact, there is contrary. Recently, we as the industry body, FIDC, our office had a meeting with the governor, and governor had called some of the leading NBFCs also for a discussion. And in fact, this point was discussed that, and rightly so, the regulator and the RBI governor said that while we are witnessing a very robust and a very strong, rapid growth in the NBFC sector, it was a kind of a caution that please watch out that nothing wrong happens, because often it is said that during good times, people tend to become lax, and that is where something wrong happens. So that was just a word of caution which came in, and rightly so at this point. But the message here is that once again, RBI and everybody recognizes that yes, we are seeing a very rapid growth in the NBFC sector, and it also reflects in a robust asset quality as of now.
All right. Mr. Aggarwal, just to quickly wrap this up, and I just want one last question I have for you. And if you could tell me in brief that what are your views on the current state of regulations and the business environment for NBFCs?
See, we all know that RBI has of late, put in place what is called as the scale-based regulatory framework, which came into effect from 1st October 2022. And rightly so. So what they've done is, it's a layered structure, and the regulatory framework keeps becoming more and more stringent as you go up the layer. And obviously, the upper layer is treated like banks. So I think the regulator is doing a very good job in terms of recognizing the resilience and the need to have different set of regulations for different size of the companies. So the small companies which are in the base layer need not be subject to very stringent regulations. Having said that, we as a sector feel that there is a lot more which needs to be done, especially on the liability side when it comes to fundraising. There is a need to diversify the funding sources. Apart from that, we see NBFC sector playing a key role, especially in the growth of MSMEs in India.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, sir, and for sharing these insights. I think it's a remarkable and momentous time for the country that the G20 has happened. Thank you so much for speaking to BQ Prime, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.